Greg-Palast is our guest, BBC reporter, Guardian newspaper writer. He's written a lot of articles and done a lot of reports over the years about the nuclear power industry and governments covering things up. 3 Mile Island, we know, was many times worse. Decades later, we learned than what they told us. Tokyo Electric to build U.S. nuclear plants. And he's got the no baloney info on Japan's disastrous nuclear operations at greg-palast.com. We have continual coverage, obviously, at Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.tv. We also stream live video for PrisonPlanet.tv members. If you're a new listener and want to check out PrisonPlanet.tv. After Greg leaves us, I'm going to recap all the latest huge developments as things deteriorate quickly at Fukushima. But Greg, I wanted to bring this up to you, and this is all hiding in plain view. AP, Reuters, NPR. Turns out Fukushima, as you know, is a giant nuclear waste dump, not just 6 nuke plants. The Mark I reactor, number 3, Blue Sky High, it had rods stored on top of the building, more than 200,000, it's reported, that were ejected thousands of feet into the air, highly radioactive. They now admit 2 of the internal containment facilities at the plants have been breached. Now, they're now saying in ABC News the radiation is so bad, but then the Japanese government is giving radiation maps, but around Fukushima, it's in pink, saying still collating data. In fact, we'll put that on screen. They're still saying that they're still gauging, so they're not giving us the numbers. We have huge military presence in South Korea, in Okinawa, in Japan. They've been ordered not to get anywhere close to it. The fleet has run away. Undoubtedly, the winds are coming towards the United States, and Obama is running around, spending an hour and a half picking NCAA numbers, visiting with hockey teams. And we have a report at PrisonPlanet.com. Obama fiddles while Fukushima burns. It has a similar headline. Obama plays while Japan begs for help on Infowars.com. What is your take on the information I just covered?
Well, it's sick and sad. Yes, they've used the Fukushima plant as you say, a nuclear waste dump. They've put the used rods. These are very old plants. They've been operating for 3 decades already. They put all these old rods in the containment buildings. So when these things have been blowing and going, basically you not only have the reactors with the live fuel, but you have the old fuel. Now you have to understand the old fuel blows up too. It causes massive contamination as soon as the water around those rods evaporate. This is one of the problems, by the way. As you know, Obama said he would never have a push a nuclear program in the U.S. unless there were a place to put these fuel rods other than next to a hot reactor. He's never come up with it, yet he has a proposal to spend $56 billion or give $56 billion in guarantees for nuclear plant building. And by the way, that money is going to Citibank and J.P. Morgan. When we talk about guarantees, it doesn't go to the nuclear industry. It goes to the banks that are making the money on the nuclear.
And then they hand it out. Let me go back for a moment. Fukushima, 6 plants, total devastation there. And the media is acting like that this is really no big deal and telling us no danger of fallout. From your decades of researching this, what's your gut view? I mean, it looks to me like a huge cover-up is going on.
I don't have a gut view. I have an expert view. Because before I was a journalist, Alex, you may not know this, I was actually an investigator for the government, mainly nuclear racketeering and fraud. I conducted some major multi-billion-dollar investigations.
No, I did know that. So give us your expert take then.
And so the expert take is I've gone through evacuation plans, morbidity rates, the geomorphology and weather of this. We are going to have massive increase in leukemias, thyroid cancers, bone cancers, lymphomas, etc. in Japan. But the prevailing wind goes across around the Pacific Rim into Anchorage, and doubtless Vancouver and Seattle are going to have increases in cancer rates, birth defects, etc. Now, it won't be anywhere near as big as Japan. I don't want to create panic or upset, but it will be a slight rise. If it's your kid that's deformed, slight may not be a lot of comfort to you. This is massive. I would say, I don't want to be irresponsible and put too many numbers on it, but I think that people should have some idea that when we measure these things, we don't measure in hundreds, we measure in tens of thousands, maybe 100,000, 200,000 in terms of morbidity and mortality. It's a very serious business. The idea that it's not as bad as Chernobyl is completely nuts propaganda. You have to know that the Japanese government has not put the radiation figures out because they claim that their aerial gauges above the Fukushima plant are not operating. What that means is that they don't want to tell us. If they're not operating, then they're really insane.
Well, that's right. Two giant districts. We have a map up. Everywhere else in the country, they have the readings and they're public. But in the two states or prefectures, as they call them.
Prefectures, yeah.
The prefectures, they say under survey. So it shows Tokyo and other areas with high levels of radiation, but they won't give us the numbers in and around Fukushima.
Of course not. They don't want to. And you know, I'm not a conspiracy nut on this. I'm kind of a conspiracy expert. That's what I used to do for the government, is uncover conspiracies. And obviously they don't want this information out because it's also going to be massive lawsuits worldwide. You know, Tokyo Electric, by the way, and this is at greg-palast.com, you'll see my article. I was already investigating these guys before the explosion. Because bad news in Texas, buddy, Tokyo Electric was invited by the Obama administration to build 2 nuclear plants on the Gulf Coast of Texas. Originally, the main owner remains Houston Power. Now, Houston Power, for those Texans that will know this, was fined $1 billion for incompetence in building the 2 South Texas plants that are there. They were paid several million in criminal fines for covering up safety violations, and they went bankrupt. So you have a bankrupt company with a criminal record and certified incompetent. How come we're giving them a loan guarantee to build 2 more plants? So their answer was, well, if you give us the guarantee, we'll have wonderful Tokyo Electric come in. They'll own 20%, and they will show us how to build a plant safely. They will show us how to operate a plant safely. Well, I guess you can go and now see their training video right now. You just turn on any station. It's on fire. That's what they're bringing in to Texas. And Tokyo Electric will be tapping into our $4 billion taxpayer guarantee. And yet, the Department of Energy, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, and Congress, both parties, are saying that they will not change this program of bringing Tokyo Electric into the United States and giving them big money, big government subsidies to run our nuclear plants. Real serious stuff. These guys have a long history of fraud. Their 3 top executives had to resign in 2002 over massive cover-up of safety violations.
I was about to say, ABC News Australia reports on the long history of Japanese cover-ups, particularly Tokyo Electric. And you, at greg-palast.com, we do see the articles and reports you even put out before this happened, talking about this Texas deal. Let me ask you another question before we continue, Greg, with other areas you think are important for folks to know. Looking at this, Japan builds these on fault lines on the sea where they have tsunamis, and now they're talking about coming here to Texas where we have hurricanes, and Tokyo Electric are such smart guys. They store the fuel rods on top of the buildings that have now blown sky high. Talk about risk management. I mean, it seems like they did the worst things they possibly could have done.
Well, keep in mind, I've heard the chairman, the former chairman of our Nuclear Regulatory Commission, and some Japanese officials and nuclear officials say, well, this is surprising because you had both an earthquake and a tsunami together. Well, my son, who just had 8th grade science before this happened, could tell you that 100% of the time when you have a Pacific Rim offshore earthquake, 100% of the time you get a tsunami of one size or another. The idea that somehow these events occurred together is shocking. It's like saying the back wheels of a car happened to move forward when the front wheels went forward. They go together, you know, and that they didn't know this. That they seem to think that this is an excuse that these 2 events happened together is really quite frightening. And the fact that our own Nuclear Regulatory Commission thinks that that's okay too, especially when we're talking about the Gulf Coast of Texas and other places. There's going to be several plants. Plus, we've got, you know, I heard a nuclear expert from the industry, so-called expert, on TV saying, well, these are 40-year-old designs. It's the old Mark I plant. Well, we have over 20 Mark I plants running in the United States.
23.
Yeah, weak containments. this isn't about being pro or anti-nuclear, Alex. This is about being anti-fraud. This is about being anti-shakedown. We're getting conned for $4 billion in Texas, $56 billion the Obama administration wants to spend. And, and the cover, the wonderful cover is, don't worry, we're bringing in Tokyo Electric. They know how to do it.
Well, let me stop you. We now have a whole bunch of former GE and current GE scientists quitting, saying that they internally have complained about the Mark I's and even some of the new designs. So that certainly bolsters. And yes, Greg, I've read your books and your bio. I know that you were an anti-nuclear fraud investigator for the federal government before you were an investigative journalist. That's why you got into it. Now, but let me stop you there. Let's pull back. Studying how governments and corporations cover up, and they follow a playbook. Studying the prevailing winds. Reactor rods being ejected thousands of feet in the air that were on top of Fukushima 3 that blew up Monday morning. The fact that it's ongoing. The levels of radiation we're talking about. 2 of the containment facilities of the live reactors now breached. The admissions that they don't even want to send in emergency workers now, that it's, quote, a suicide mission. The Fukushima 50. The fact that they won't release the radiation numbers. The fact that the Pentagon is off swarming over the area and says they might send a spy plane tomorrow, maybe. No meteorologists, no talk about fallout. How do you expect the cover-up now to unfold, and what should folks on the West Coast be doing?
Well, folks on the West Coast should be, actually, sushi is a very good response because it has seaweed, which has iodine. You want to dose your body with as much natural iodine as possible so that you're to keep the iodine 16 out of your thyroid. There's no such thing as a natural radiation shield, but that'd be the first thing I do is start eating some seaweed. That's not a joke, by the way. I did recommend to Japanese colleagues that they tweet out and send out a message to evacuate at least 40 kilometers from the plant area. The government told them first 10 kilometers, which is only 6 miles, and they changed it to 20. And now that it's too late, people will actually be going through radiation. They've told people to seal up their houses. It's snowing. Don't turn on your heat. Seal up your houses and just stay there. Insanely irresponsible. So you know that they're lying because they didn't get out. They didn't care if people stayed in the radiation zone. They didn't hand out iodine pills because they didn't want to so-called panic people. People will now die because they didn't hand out iodine pills. So these companies really, literally don't care if you live and if you die.
But what about the Pentagon swarming that area, heavy military presence? They've got detectors. They're not giving us any numbers. They're teaming up with the Japanese in the cover-up.
Well, don't forget that who is one of the biggest nuclear plant operators in the world? It's the U.S. military. We have, weapons-grade systems. We have the disaster at the Hanford nuclear plant, which is like a massive toxic zone. Los Alamos. The last thing we want to do is start questioning nuclear power, because then you might start questioning the entire nuclear cycle and say, who are nuclear bombs threatening? An enemy, or are they threatening us because of the process we use here in the country?
But how do we respond to this cover-up?
How do we respond? I think that we have to, I guess, your program, we have to get the word out. I mean, it's very difficult. I have years and years of experience in this field, and yet I haven't been invited onto a single American TV show. I work for the biggest network in the world, BBC, and I'm on television all over the planet, but not here. And it's not because I'm wonderful, but where's the experts who aren't on the payroll of the nuclear industry? I haven't heard one single commentator or questioner say, when these guys say, don't worry about this, weren't they the guys that said, don't worry about this 3 weeks ago? The guys that told us, hey, don't worry about nuclear power. Look, they do it in Japan without a problem. I actually heard one nuclear expert from the industry yesterday say, well, we've had a pretty good record. Pretty good record? There's going to be maybe 100,000 deaths here? Easy? I mean, what if 500 Boeing airplanes fell out of the sky and they said, well, it's been we've had a good run. Would we accept that? We accept that from this industry. This is crazy. And it only happens because it's an industry which lives and thrives on lies and fraud. And I'm not saying the thing is that it's all your money as a ratepayer. You're a captive, monopolized customer.
Well, Greg, let's not forget that the EPA knew the asbestos and mercury and lead. They knew it was deadly. And they said, don't worry about gas masks. The air is safe to breathe. Open the schools back up the day after 9/11. I mean, they have a history of just lying to us with extreme pleasure.